They say a man becomes dangerous when you touch his pride, but the truth is far deeper. When you unsettle a man's ego without anger, without effort, you don't destroy him, you reveal him, and what he begins to crave is not your affection, it's your power. The quiet kind, the one he cannot name or predict, the one that makes him question why he's thinking about you at midnight, long after you've gone silent. In this teaching, we will not speak of tricks, seduction, or surface games. That is the language of the shallow. Instead, we will enter the deeper ground, where presence breaks patterns, where detachment awakens longing, and where your silence can speak louder than his pride. You will learn why a woman rooted in herself, unbothered, undistracted, unchased, becomes unforgettable, not because she feeds his ego, but because she starves it, and in that starvation, obsession is born. You will understand how the Shaolin path trains us to master our own energy, not manipulate another's. You will hear of teachings rarely spoken, of practices that have sharpened the minds of warriors and sages alike. Why silence is not passive, why absence is not rejection, and why true power is never performed, only felt. Stay with me until the end, and I will show you the hidden force behind the feminine that cannot be faked, and the ancient wisdom that modern minds have forgotten. This is the art of emotional mastery, the soul of self-respect, and the invisible thread that turns presence into power. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire. If these truths resonate, join us, subscribe, and walk this rare path with us. A man does not always recognize what he is drawn to, but the ego always knows what it cannot control, and that is what disturbs it. The ego is not evil. It is afraid. It fears loss. It fears rejection. It fears being forgotten. So it clings, demands, dominates. It does not seek love. It seeks possession. To the ego, connection is a contract. If I give, you must give back. If I reach, you must respond. But essence plays by no such rules. When a woman is still within herself, not withdrawn but centered, something rare begins to happen. The ego cannot read her. She does not feed it with constant attention, nor does she react to its tests. She becomes unfamiliar, not cold, but calm, not distant, but detached. And this creates a space where something deeper stirs, curiosity, even awe. In Shaolin teaching, the self that desires control must first learn to let go. To conquer others is strength. To conquer the self is true power. We train not to master the world, but to dissolve our grip on it. For only when we release the need to hold, do we begin to truly connect. A woman who does not rush to explain herself, who is at peace with silence, who does not seek validation from another, lives from essence, not ego. She does not challenge a man's ego directly. She simply no longer entertains it, and this quiet rejection of control becomes its own kind of mirror. What reflects back is not always comfortable, but it is real, and in that moment, the man is faced with a choice: rise beyond ego, or lose what he cannot name but cannot forget. Most people believe power is in the loudest voice, the sharpest comeback, or the last word spoken. But ancient wisdom teaches the opposite, that real strength is the space you choose not to fill. When someone provokes you, demands a reaction, or tests your patience, their ego is reaching. It wants confirmation of control. And the moment you react with anger, explanation, or desperation, you offer your energy as fuel. You've handed over power, silently, completely. Non-reaction is not weakness, it is restraint. It is the ability to hold your center when the world tries to pull you off balance. In Shaolin practice, we are taught to observe the mind like still water, not to suppress emotion, but to let it pass without storm. To remain calm while being misunderstood. To hold silence while someone tries to stir chaos. To walk away without the need to prove anything. This is not passivity, this is precision. There is a reason the masters move slowly, speak rarely, and react almost never, because they understand that energy is sacred, and what you give attention to, you give life to. Mindfulness shows us a simple truth. Between every impulse and every action, there is a gap. That gap is your freedom. In that space, you can choose, not from fear, not from pride, but from clarity. A woman who does not react becomes unpredictable to a man ruled by ego. He cannot use emotion to pull her. He cannot use drama to test her. And so she becomes something he cannot manipulate and cannot forget. It is not silence that stings. It is the strength behind the silence. Not every part of a person is meant to be met. Some parts must be left unanswered, not out of cruelty, but clarity. When a man approaches from his lower self, seeking validation, attention, or control. He is not seeking connection. He is seeking a mirror to reflect his ego. And the moment you play the game, even to correct it, you enter his level. You begin speaking a language that leads nowhere. True power is quiet refusal. It is the discipline to remain still in the face of provocation, to smile and step back when tested by immaturity, to respond with silence instead of reaction. This is not indifference, it is mastery. In the way of the Shaolin, monks are trained to recognize noise, not just outer noise but inner noise. The need to be right, the desire to win, the fear of being unseen, all of it is mental chatter, and they do not engage with it. They step beyond it. In relationships, this principle applies with equal depth. When you disengage from a man's lower behavior, ignoring manipulation, dismissing emotional games, refusing to beg for clarity, you send a message: your ego cannot reach me, I do not live there. It unsettles him, because the ego feeds on reaction, and when it receives none, it starves. What remains is space. In that space, he must rise or retreat. You do not need to fix, teach, or change him. You simply hold your standard by refusing to meet him where he is small. And in doing so, you become large in his eyes, not through effort, but through elegance. Discipline is not always action. Sometimes it is the wisdom to walk away without saying a word. There is a quiet power in restraint, the kind that doesn't push, doesn't prove, and doesn't pursue. It simply holds space, and in that space, truth reveals itself. When you stop chasing a man, when you no longer offer your energy to fill his emotional gaps, something subtle begins to happen. The echo of your silence becomes louder than any words you could speak. He is left alone, not just with your absence, but with his own reflection. Most people spend their lives distracting themselves from their own emptiness. They seek attention, praise, validation, not because they are full, but because they are hungry. When you stop feeding that hunger, you do not harm them. You show them the hunger itself. Shaolin teachings remind us to hold a mirror is not to attack, but to reflect. And sometimes the most powerful mirror is your refusal to be pulled into patterns that no longer serve you. Your calm becomes confronting. Your silence becomes the teacher. A man used to being chased may first feel confused, even offended. But over time, what begins to grow is not resentment, it's obsession. Not with you alone, but with the mystery of your strength. The quiet way you remain grounded while he feels unsteady. The way you do not explain, yet still leave an impression. Attention is easy to find. Absence with dignity is rare. When you stop offering your light to someone who doesn't know how to hold it, they are left in their own shadow. And only then can they choose to rise or stay in the dark. This is not manipulation, it is mastery. The art of reversing the mirror and letting someone meet their own reflection, perhaps for the first time. There is a kind of presence that does not speak, yet is felt. It does not announce itself, yet it draws everything toward it. This is the quiet pull of essence. Essence is not built on how you look, what you say, or how much you give. It is the energy that arises when you are deeply rooted in yourself, in your purpose, in your peace, in your practice. When you no longer seek to be chosen, but choose yourself fully and without apology. Ego, on the other hand, is loud. It performs. It reaches outward, needing to be seen, needing to be fed. It repels because it is restless, and people feel that restlessness, even if they don't understand it. Shaolin discipline teaches that stillness is not the absence of power, it is power under control. It is the calm of the warrior before the strike, the silence of the master before the lesson. In this stillness there is gravity. Presence becomes undeniable. When a woman lives from her essence, she does not try to be magnetic. She is magnetic. Her calm becomes a contrast to the chaos around her. Her peace becomes rare, and what is rare becomes sacred. She doesn't over-explain, doesn't overextend, doesn't overprove. Her strength lies in her subtlety, the way she walks into a room and brings the energy down to stillness, the way she listens more than she speaks, the way she carries herself like someone who needs nothing, yet offers everything selectively, wisely, with intention. Essence cannot be copied. It is cultivated through inner work, discipline, solitude, and truth. And when it is present, ego has no place to land. It is disarmed, humbled, and quietly, undeniably drawn in. Respect does not grow in unlimited space. It grows where there are edges, where there is form, Without boundaries, even love begins to lose shape. A man's ego may resist boundaries at first. It may call them rejection, distance, or control. But beneath the resistance, something deeper stirs: respect. Because boundaries reveal something rare: self-awareness, self-value, a quiet sense of inner law. When you set a boundary, you are not pushing someone away. You are showing them the conditions under which your presence remains peaceful. You are saying, this is where I end, and this is where I will not betray myself for the sake of being liked. That clarity commands attention. It earns something louder than attraction. It earns regard. Shaolin philosophy holds that true discipline is not about restriction, but freedom. Without structure, the mind scatters. Without form, energy leaks. And without boundaries, relationships fall into chaos, confusion, or control. A woman who knows her boundaries does not need to explain them loudly. She lives them calmly. She does not negotiate with disrespect. She does not stay in spaces that require her to shrink. Her no is as sacred as her yes. And this quiet firmness creates something the ego doesn't expect: longing, curiosity, and reverence. Because what cannot be easily accessed becomes valuable. What cannot be moved becomes a point of gravity. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks opened only by those who know how to knock with care. In holding them, you protect your essence. You teach through action. And you show that respect begins not in how someone treats you, but in how you treat yourself first. There is a stillness more powerful than desire. It is the stillness of detachment. Not cold, not distant, but free. When you are no longer tied to how something must unfold, who must choose you, or what someone must feel for you, you step into a different realm of power, one that cannot be touched by pressure or praise, one that the ego cannot understand. Emotional attachment is often mistaken for love, but it is fear wearing the mask of affection: fear of loss, fear of not being enough, fear of being forgotten. And when fear drives connection, control always follows: the need to hold, to fix, to chase. But when you detach, when you release your grip on outcome, approval, or attention, you become untouchable, not because you don't care, but because you no longer need to cling. And this disturbs the ego deeply. It cannot seduce you, cannot provoke you, cannot predict you. In Zen, the teaching is simple: let go or be dragged. It is not a threat, it is a mercy, because attachment is suffering, detachment is peace. Shaolin monks train to let go of desire, not to become empty, but to become whole. They do not live in numbness, they live in clarity. When you master detachment, you begin to see clearly what serves your spirit and what only feeds your insecurity. To a man ruled by ego, your detachment becomes a mystery. Why are you not chasing? Why do you not react? Why are you at peace, even without him? And in that mystery, longing begins, not for your attention, but for your freedom. Because the one who lets go first is always the one in control. There is a quiet dignity in those who no longer feel the need to be understood. They do not defend, prove, or chase recognition. They walk in their word, and that walk is enough. The moment you begin to explain your value, something subtle is lost. The power shifts outward. You invite someone else to decide what should have been known from your presence alone. Words begin to carry weight. They were never meant to hold. True self-worth is not loud. It doesn't need applause or approval. It is expressed through direction, not description, through silence, not explanation. The calm certainty in your choices, the way you honor your time, the way you say no without guilt and yes without fear. In Shaolin teaching, the master does not announce his arrival. He enters with stillness. He commands through presence, not posture, because mastery, when real, needs no advertisement. It speaks in how you move, how you respond, how you carry the invisible. When you embody your word, you no longer attract situations that demand constant reassurance. You no longer feel pulled to be seen because you are already seen by yourself. That inner recognition becomes the only validation you need. To a man watching, this becomes deeply magnetic. He sees the difference between someone trying to be chosen and someone who already chose herself. There is no neediness, no performance, only depth. You do not need to explain why you are valuable. You only need to become so deeply aligned with your essence that others feel it before you ever speak. That is the way of inner mastery, not to convince but to become. There is a quiet transformation that happens when you begin to lead yourself. When you no longer wait to be chosen, guided, or saved, but rise with your own direction, your own structure, your own strength. This is the integration of the inner masculine, the part of you that holds discipline, makes decisions, and moves with clarity. It is not in conflict with softness. It protects it, supports it, grounds it. In the ancient philosophy of yin and yang, power is not in choosing one over the other, but in harmony. Yin is receptive, fluid, intuitive. Yang is focused, stable, and assertive. When these forces are balanced within, you no longer seek someone else to complete you. You walk as whole. A woman who masters her inner masculine becomes unshakable. She is still soft, still open, but not available to chaos, not swayed by promises without action, not led by emotions without anchor. Her boundaries are not made of defense, but direction. Shaolin discipline teaches that mastery begins within. Before one can lead others, one must command oneself. The first opponent is always the mind. The first battle is always against distraction, doubt, and delay. Through training, rhythm, and silence, the monk becomes his own guide. When you cultivate this same energy, waking early with purpose, making clear choices, staying committed to what matters, you become the structure that your own soul can trust, and that trust becomes your freedom. No one can manipulate a woman who leads herself. She does not fear loss, because she does not abandon herself. And to a man, this presence is both humbling and magnetic, not because she needs nothing, but because what she needs, she already gives to herself. That is not independence. That is sacred balance. There is a silence that speaks louder than words, a distance that does not create separation, but clarity. When someone takes your presence for granted, the answer is not louder affection. It is absence, quiet, respectful, and rooted in self-honor, not to cause pain, not to manipulate, but to protect the energy you once gave too freely. Pulling back is not punishment. It is a return to balance. A way of saying, if you cannot meet me in presence, you will meet me in absence. Obsession does not grow in constant availability. It grows in the space where someone begins to reflect, where noise fades, and the mind replaces what was once overlooked. This is why the most unforgettable people are often the ones who stopped explaining, stopped chasing, stopped showing up where they were unseen. In ancient disciplines, monks retreat not to isolate, but to deepen their relationship with truth. Solitude is their way of realignment, of removing the noise of the world so the signal of the soul can be heard. The same applies here. When you step back, you allow the other to face themselves, to sit in the echo of their own choices, to see what they had, now felt only in absence. This is not rejection. It is reverence for your own peace, your own path. Let your absence be felt not as coldness, but as clarity, not as withdrawal, but as wisdom. Let him wonder, not where you went, but why he never met you fully when you were there. When presence is no longer available on demand, it becomes valuable. And in that realization, something shifts, not just in him, but in you. A return to stillness, a return to self. Power is not found in how loudly you speak or how hard you try to be understood. It lives in how deeply you know yourself and how gracefully you refuse to abandon that knowing. When you no longer feed a man's lower self with reaction, approval, or pursuit, something begins to shift, not just in him, but within you. You stop reaching and start radiating. You stop trying to be enough and remember that you already are. This path is not about punishment. It is about presence. It's about embodying a quiet strength that doesn't need to fight or perform because it flows from within. Through stillness, boundaries, and detachment, you become magnetic without effort. Not because you chase love, but because you become love-rooted, full, and at peace. Apply this in your daily life by pausing before reacting, by walking away from what no longer honors your spirit, by remembering that silence, when chosen with clarity, becomes a message only the soul can hear. You don't need to control who stays or who goes. You only need to stay loyal to the truth within you. Thank you for walking this path of inner mastery with us. If this message has brought you peace, insight, or strength, we invite you to join our growing circle of wisdom. Subscribe to our channel Shaolin Soulfire and continue this journey toward presence, power, and peace.